What would make a rising Las Vegas headliner walk away from his dream contract to keep the Sabbath day holy? Jason Hewlett did exactly that. Today on Successful Saints, Jason shares how saying no to the Strip turned into a Hall of Fame speaking career, a global message of clean comedy, and a life built on covenant promises. We dive into using your quirks as callings, raising bold missionary kids, and making real promises to them. But before we begin, a brief disclaimer. Jason and I recorded this just before this last general conference, which was an eventful week for us as members for a variety of reasons. With that known, let's dive into it. Welcome to the podcast, Jason.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is great.
We're excited to have you here. I feel like you have a dynamic story and some fun insights to share. Just for everyone to get to know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a father of 4 beautiful children. My wife and I have been married. We got married in the Salt Lake Temple. So we've been married for 24 years and 4 kids in 5 years. Good times. Now they're all grown up. In fact, we have a daughter that just returned from New Zealand where she was an au pair for a little while, and she found some wonderful friends in the church there. That was a wonderful experience for her. And then my son, Redford, who's 18, he just landed in Santa Fe, Argentina for his 2-year mission.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
He's so excited for that. We're so proud of him. We live in Daybreak, right by the Ochre Mountain Temple in South Jordan, Utah. My son, Romney, he's the SBO spirit leader at Harriman High School. And then we have a little guy named Royal. He just is turning 14 over conference, and he's just a wonderful boy. So we have a wonderful family. And then I'm also I make a living doing a couple of different things. I've gone around the world as an entertainer, and I've won a lot of different awards doing that. I consider myself a G-rated, family-friendly Las Vegas entertainer. That's a very small niche. And then I've also been inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame. I understand you've had other Speaker Hall of Famers on here, including Clint Pulver and Chad Hymas. And so those are some of my chums and peers, people I look up to. And then I am an MC for a lot of events. I just wrapped a show at the Hale Center Theater in Sandy, Utah, where we did a Billy Joel, Elton John tribute show with my band. And so I do a lot of performing, speaking. I'm an author. And I also am the president of a health supplement company called Cardio Miracle. And that's not an MLM or direct sales, but it's a nitric oxide product for people looking to improve their cardiovascular health.
Nice. Take us back to when you were younger. You mentioned that you sing. How'd you get into singing, and what took you down that path?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I didn't know this was going to be my path until I was about high school age, but as a kid, my dad used to drag me to the choir in the early mornings for our stake, and that was a fun thing, of course, because he was a great singer. In fact, his grandpa, my great-grandpa, Lester Franklin Hewlett, was the president of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Oh, wow.
From the 30s to the 60s. And my great-grandma, his wife, Margaret, she was one of the soloists in the choir. And so our family has a rich heritage of music on the Hewlett side. On my mom's side, which is the Redford side, we have acting and we have music as well in there, and comedy. And so I think all of that just kind of came together as I became a kid that went around making people laugh mostly through my comedy faces and other funny things that I could do. Eventually in high school, somebody heard me singing in the hall. Her name was Rosalind Hall. She was the choir teacher at Waterford School in Sandy. And she heard me singing in the hall one day, and she said, "Who's singing in the hall?" And it was me. So she pulled me into the choir room, and that's where my career began, essentially, because she clarified for me what I had never identified, that I was a singer. And she made me sing a song for her, and I didn't know what song to sing, so I just sang a song I knew would get me out of there. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. But I sang, "Christmas, Christmas, time is moved, time for toils and time for toil." And she went, "Well, that's very interesting. Most people can't do that." And she found out that I could not only mimic voices as a singer, but also that I had a pretty significant range. And I believe that a lot of that was hereditary as well as a God-given gift. And as she pulled me out of every class she felt I didn't need, the next thing I knew, I was being mentored by somebody that's become one of the great music teachers in the church's history. As Rosalind Hall eventually left Waterford School, went and took over Mac Wilberg's place at BYU when he took over the Tabernacle Choir, and she went to BYU and took over music there. So that's my teacher from high school, and that's how it started for me after my mission to Brazil, Florianopolis, Brazil, in 97 and 99. I came home, and instead of going to BYU and all the places that I had offers to go to, I instead went to Las Vegas and became a singer and performer in Sin City. And it was a great time, and I learned a lot, and I had to make some big choices there as well.
During your time in Las Vegas, as Vegas isn't exactly known as the most family friendly, how did you find living your faith there, and what were the choices you had to make in order to make sure you were staying on the right path?
Great question. I mean, really, I had just gotten home from the mission, found my wife at the singles ward, and I remember seeing her, and I said, okay, that's who I'm going to marry. That's my eternity. And I chased her down. Yeah, we got married in 2001, and a couple of, I mean, within a month, we were performing in this Las Vegas show. And I landed in this show called Legends in Concert. It was actually founded by a Latter day Saint named Johnny Stewart, who lives in Las Vegas. And the show was really quite clean for a Las Vegas show. In fact, it was family friendly and all of the good things, but obviously backstage was a little bit different and unique for somebody just coming off of a sealing in the temple to his bride. And so I was an impersonator for that show. And you have to, in Legends in Concert, impersonate somebody. It's a tribute show. So I was both Ricky Martin, the Latin lover, and I doubled as Elton John, the singer songwriter on the piano. And as that guy, it was a very interesting experience. Of course, I had lots of people that were in those shows wondering what was a Mormon boy doing in this show. And I learned a lot real fast that this was not the environment that was best for me. I traveled around with my wife, and we went to different locations for this show. It wasn't just Las Vegas, it was Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was kind of all around. And eventually I realized, this is maybe not the right setting for me to make a living, even though it was a great place to land and a great opportunity. It was not the best for me because eventually they even made us perform on Sundays, which I didn't really want to do. And I had to make some big choices. I'd made promises when I was a kid that if I ever did make it in showbiz, that I would keep a certain standard and live a certain value. And as I had to make those adjustments, I left that job eventually, left Las Vegas after even being offered something really quite significant to be a headliner there as a one man show. And in my 20s, I was walking away from the opportunity of a lifetime because they wanted to manage me and manipulate my presentation to something I didn't want to share. What's interesting is that most people don't realize this, but Las Vegas in the 90s really focused on families. And they created lots of casinos around that, like the Aladdin Hotel, and they had Circus and big places for families. And eventually they leaned into a different path, which by 2004 was what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right.
And that was at the exact same time as they wanted me there. I was 25 years old. They were offering me opportunities to have my name in lights and on taxis and my own casino and my own headlining opportunity. But they needed me to change the act. And I wanted it to be family friendly. I wanted to do the chipmunks and all the fun stuff that I did for families. And they were like, no, we don't think we need those things. So I had to walk away from the opportunity of a lifetime in order to keep a promise to myself, my family, and my legacy. And I think that had I not made that decision a long time prior, it would have been a lot tougher of a choice in the moment because it was the opportunity of a lifetime. But I changed paths, came back to Utah, and created our family here. It was a wonderful shift. I'm so thankful for it. And to be candid, Las Vegas has its stuff, but I'll tell you, the community there is extremely strong in the church. On the outskirts of the strip, the church is extremely strong, and the members there are very, very wonderful people. So it's been an interesting experience to see how that works all around the country with members that are firm, regardless of the city itself.
Right. As you look back on your decision to change your career and to move, what were the defining moments that you think of that helped you have the confidence and the faith that things were going to be all right in the shift?
I would say having made covenants in the temple was a big deal, and knowing that my wife and I wanted to have something of significance for a legacy to create a family that would be in the church, that would be living it every single day and going on Sundays to church instead of me being on stages. And although that might be the right path for some people, whether it's an athlete that has to play on a Sunday or a job that you need to take, for me, I was able to call the shots, if you will, and say, hey, I'm not going to do that on a Sunday for myself. And just making even that one commitment, I mean, I bet I've lost millions of dollars in bookings because of the I don't do Sundays moniker that I've set on myself, but my agent knows that. They don't even ask anymore. They used to be like, "Can you do Sunday?" I'd say, "Yeah, right?" No, they'd go, "Oh,
That's right.
dang. Yeah, you're right." But those types of things, just setting a standard for myself and my family and what is expected. I don't think that that's a self-righteous choice. Rather, I believe it's just a commitment that I made and a promise to my family, to my God, and to myself to say, Heavenly Father, I'm going to turn away great opportunities when they don't align with what I've promised I will do. And He's blessed us in innumerable ways. It's been a wonderful thing. Equally, I'd say being able to watch other people around me that have made and kept great promises, and even those that have broken them, that made a big deal for me because watching those folks that I admired that did great things and made big choices and hard choices in order to live the gospel, I said, I want to be like that guy. And I want to follow that path. That's the way I want to go. And other people that I really looked up to that didn't quite keep the promise within the gospel, I'd say, okay, I want to make sure to not follow that path that they went down, see if I can avoid some of those pitfalls. And in many instances, those were the people that helped me the most because they are able, obviously, to repent. The atonement's real. And they also have been able to be that kind of person that could say, hey, don't go this way. Don't do that way. Keep to your scriptures. Pray every day. Make sure that you're strong in the faith. Don't waver. Keep your covenants. Always wear the full garment. Things like that, that most people just think, oh, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it's a huge deal. If you commit to it fully, then be all in. It's way easier to be all in than to be part way. And so instead of 98%, we're going for 100, even if we fail a little bit here and there.
So you learned lessons from others, decided that it wasn't going to be the best environment for you and your family and your goals. What did you do next?
Well, we came back to Utah and built a home in Daybreak, which was just essentially a vision of what could be for a master plan community. We watched all the grass rolled out in South Jordan, Utah, which this was essentially farming fields and the tailings of the Kennecott copper mine. And the next thing we know, they're digging out an entire lake and they all of a sudden announced a temple, the Ochre Mountain Temple. And so it was a very special thing. Being in this community as it grew up, because we've been here for over 20 years now, watching members that came and went, watching their lives and the way that they lived, people that served in the community, people who were strengthened in their faith, and people who then fell away from what our faith is and had things challenged in their lives. Candidly, I can say that this is where we put down our firm foundation. And we said, we're going to be here as long as we possibly can. We're going to be a part of the church and the community, and we're going to show up on Sundays and show up for all the activities, be a part of it, accept a calling. And even though I was traveling a lot, I was able to serve in some capacities, which was fun. And so was my wife. And so that's been a major deal for us. I began at that point to be a one-man show performer for private events. And what that means is corporations normally have a convention maybe once a year, and I got to be the entertainment at the end of their event. And so after they would hear all the speakers and all the learning and lunches and golf tournaments, award ceremony, then I would come on stage and perform, and I would sing music that they all knew and liked mixed with comedy. And it was, like I say, a G-rated family friendly thing. So quickly I became quite popular in this market of Utah, and I got hired by all the major companies that you can think of around. very good blessing. And that then spread like wildfire to where I was performing all around the world, doing huge events that were so fun. Eventually, I was asked to shift that not only from being the entertainer at night, but also to being a keynote speaker on leadership in the mornings, mixing it all together with music and leadership. It's been a fun career.
That's really cool. So you made the shift from being just a performer in Vegas to now being a motivational speaker and performer and comedian. How has your faith crafted your message? And what would you say has been something special that you've been able to bring to the world?
Those are big questions, brother. I'd say I would say that my message is very much gospel centric, or at least faith centric, in the sense that I wrote a book called The Promise to the One. And when you think about the one, you might think God in the sense of the way I wrote this. It was to say that we all have God given gifts and talents that we've been blessed with that we need to find. And the promise to the one is the promise to yourself to share your gifts and your talents. And so this became a very popular business book, but it also hit number one on the Amazon list for spiritual self help. And so the message itself of the promise is essentially to say, God sent us here to this earth to receive our body, to be tried, to have this time period of probationary, you know, exercise to see if we'll follow the commandments, receive Jesus Christ, and be baptized and keep our covenants and return to Him. Now, as a speaker, bringing that into a corporate, private, secular situation has been an interesting experience. Really, all I'm saying is shine your light, share your gifts, utilize what you've been given. And I do say on stage, God blesses us with these things and we need to find them and we need to see them in other people. And so I teach the fact that all of us have a promise that we've come here to make and keep, and that within business, we can keep promises that are great for everybody. And people really resonate with this message because it's spiritually sound and it hits them in their soul. I do it in an entertaining way, so that helps because then they're laughing and having a good time with music. But then I'm
Right.
teaching them in a way that I believe Stephen Covey would probably be the standard that we're all still shooting for. A guy who was essentially teaching the gospel and yet was teaching all the people in the world the same principles that we have learned ever since we were children in the church. And so that's essentially what the message has been. And I believe if I were to have any kind of mark that I will leave, I would hope that it would be that I really was striving to follow Christ and to share his light. And my friend, as you probably know, are we Christians? People have that debate, right? And I understand where they're coming from because our theology is maybe a little different than the traditional Christian might suggest is okay. What I like to say is, I'm going to be offering to you something that you have never seen before with the way that I do it. And this is something that I believe that uh, not only am I called to do, but this is something that God Himself wants me to do. And as I share it, all of us have the opportunity to accept it or not. It's up to us. But I believe that Jesus Christ Himself is the light of the world. And as I talk about that on stage in a business setting, it's so interesting to watch people absolutely know what I'm talking about.
There's a lot of misconceptions about us online. And that's, I imagine, something that you've had to deal with a lot, being a public figure and being a member who's lived your faith. What's been one of the keys to sharing and clearing up some of those misconceptions as you've been going about this?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to try to combat it or to just try to say, hey, let's be kind to everybody. But sometimes you have to hit it right in the, between the eyes. It's interesting to think like you would think it'd be tougher to talk to an atheist or somebody that doesn't believe anything, but the truth is it's tougher to converse with and agree upon something within that Christian realm because they are so firm that we're not a part of that world. And so what I like to say is my dad actually coined this and he's so smart. He's dealt with so many evangelical Christians, and we love the ones that we've worked with and communicated with. In fact, I've spoken at their churches and talked about being of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they're like, well, we never thought we'd have someone like you here. But I'm making them laugh. I'm bringing the spirit. They know what's going on. And my dad actually, in order to not have them slam the door on us right up front, he would call himself a charismatic, evangelical, born again member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints. And he would just say, "That's what I call myself, so you guys can understand where we're coming from, right? Because charismatic is of the Spirit, evangelical is that we're going to preach and minister the gospel, and born again, I am born again of the Spirit. And I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter day Saints." So when they go, "Wait a minute, you just said a bunch of words we really agree with, charismatic, evangelical, born again." And we just say, "Yeah, that's how we categorize who we are, because we are here to spread joy, light, and Christ. And we appreciate you accepting us in this case." I'm really proud of my dad for coming up with that kind of phrasing, because otherwise, if you just said to somebody, "I'm a Mormon," they slam the door. If you say, "I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter day Saints from Utah," they slam the door or they question everything. And so it's very interesting to be able to say, "Just so you know, I categorize myself as a charismatic, evangelical, born again member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints." And then they go, "What does that mean? Tell me more."
Yeah.
And that's been a nice way to be able to say, "We believe a lot more than you understand that we do about what you've got." And just like President Hinckley or Joseph Smith even said, "Hey, we're going to just add a little bit to what you've already got, and it's up to you to receive it."
That's a really interesting way to introduce yourself, because that's been one of the problems that we see pretty commonly online. I do a lot of gospel oriented conversations online, but it feels like a very uphill battle because there's just layer after layer after layer after layer of misconceptions. But if you can figure out a way to do it with a fresh start where it's like, "Oh, wait a second. Let's talk about this. What do you mean by that?" That's a good way to open up a conversation in a loving way. You're doing a lot of good out there in sharing that, or in showing that we as members can be regular people, and that, you know what, we're not crazy. And we can love those around us and also inspire those. So I think that's really cool that you're going about doing good and sharing your message.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been and I appreciate it. And I'm just really grateful that my dad, who has had the door slammed in his face for so long in that evangelical Christian world realm, was able to bridge the gap. In fact, he's been on Praise the Lord, like the Billy Graham kind of type shows, where it's like they only have the most evangelical Christians that you can have on those types of shows. And yet he's able to come in there and say, "Hey, look, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints. And I'm born again. I am a born again Christian. I have received Christ fully." And he's figured out his right ways to be able to tell them what we are and what it means to us, because they've never really thought about priesthood and authority. And obviously it's there, but it's not like something that they're thinking about it. Restoration of the gospel, like since when? Like, how does that work? It's so interesting, the language pieces that we have that is a little bit lost on so many people, whether you read Second Thessalonians or not. Like, you don't know about the great apostasy essentially, and how it needed to be restored, and all of the different pieces of doctrine that are so essential for people that have just essentially, I think they know the Bible, and that's awesome, and they memorize their scriptures, and they are doing a good Christian life, and that's a great thing. I believe, however, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints demands of us so much to not only believe it, but to stand firm in the storm, especially among the people that are potentially trying to knock us down, that are also spiritual people. Like, that's crazy. We're seeing that right now. In fact, the week of this recording, I don't know when you're going to launch this, but I mean, we just saw a chapel be attacked on a Sunday in the middle of worship services. We find out later this guy was targeting our church. And he knew that when he drives into the chapel doors, people are going to run to go help him. And he jumps out and starts shooting us. Okay, what? And then he lights the place on fire. What? Now, that's frightening. right? And then to find out that he's got a lot against us, and that's a horrible thing. People have perished. It's a horrible thing. It was the day after we all wake up and find out President Nelson has passed away. Like, can you just keep hitting us? And this reminds me of the extermination order in the 1800s. This is the reason why we had to flee and settle in Utah. And yet this happens in what, Grand Blanc, Michigan. And guess what's happened? I mean, here we are on Thursday. This happened back on Sunday. In 5 days, there has been a fundraiser set up by people within our church to raise money for the victim's family. Now, I'm not just talking about the victims that have died. We're talking about the person who was killing people also was killed by the police, and we are now raising money for their family. If that's not Christian, I'm not sure what kind of Christian I want to be.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the online discussion and the reaction across multiple different news sources and social media. It's been a lot to take in. I feel like it's been a crazy month for us as members. There's been the news articles, the Times piece being published for President Nelson. There's been the Exmo piece that got featured in the New York Times. There's been a lot of news, a lot of media. There's Dancing with the Stars. There's the shooting here in Utah. There's the shooting at the church. There's been a lot. I feel like
Right.
it's a lot for us as members to process and understand and make sure that we are being peacemakers. That's one thing that I look back at, just the messages that President Nelson gave at last General Conference.
Yeah.
Then his piece in the Times was calling us and the world and the political leaders of the world to be peacemakers.
Yeah.
And man, how relevant that has been.
Yeah. And
So
right.
it's been interesting.
Well said. And, I don't want to bring the podcast down to this sad place, because in reality, as we talk about world news, as we talk about hard things, as we discuss the fact that this is the reality of what saints go through and have been through, and it's horrible, it makes us perhaps have a bit more empathy for the struggle of our own history as a church. I mean, we already talk about it. We're in Doctrine and Covenants. We're reading it in real time right now for Come Follow Me. And yet we are pioneers too now. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, because the social media is now a storm of good and evil, like we've never seen it before. So do you stand for something? Do you speak up? Do you hide in the shadows, or do you shine your light? I mean, just like President Nelson talked about peacemakers, I'm looking from my Bible here because honestly, as I think about it, it was Matthew, right? That Jesus in the Beatitudes, it was Matthew 5. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, I'm okay to be persecuted. Like, I'm not saying bring it on, but I'm kind of saying bring it on, I guess. I kind of get that's part of the deal, to be a full-on believer in Christ. Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, the next part I love so much, and I talk about this in every speech I give. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket or a bushel, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. It's interesting to read that, because I'll tell you, we're in it. Are we willing to stand for something? Are we willing to be the peacemaker? We're not looking to be the rabble rouser. And if somebody's sitting there thinking to themselves, how can I have peace in a world of turmoil? How can I go back to church on a Sunday wondering if someone could come flying through that door and kill us all like has just happened? Well, my question for you is, are you serving? Are you giving? Are you reading your scriptures? Are you up to date on your tithing? Are you repenting as we've been told we should? Are you giving as much as you can to your Savior? And if you are doing those things, and if you are ready to meet God, then you have nothing to fear.
The phrase "come what may" comes to mind.
Well said.
Because you said "bring it on," which I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. But I might rephrase it as a little bit more like "come what may." Bring it
I
on,
will
as
be
in
done,
we're
maybe,
ready.
right? I will be done, right? Or come what may.
Right.
I like that. That's right.
As I've monitored the situation, and part of my hobby and also part of my job is I've been monitoring the whole situation of how members are reacting online. And one of the things that's been really interesting is in this past month, and especially in the past week, so many members have come out of the woodworks to bear their testimony online, especially on TikTok. It has been so cool to see how many members who normally don't post, or members who do post but they normally don't talk about their faith, have taken this week to share their testimony, to share their thoughts, and to share their faith. It's been really cool. The amount of members that are sharing their testimony online, it's gone up by 100-fold this week. And it's been inspiring to see, especially in this time of mourning and also celebration. We get a new prophet this weekend, and that is so cool and something I'm so grateful for. And so I would encourage members to keep it up, and let's take advantage of this moment that we're in the midst of. Within this decade, as being referred to as another Mormon moment for us. Another moment where the church is going to consistently be in the spotlight with the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple when it happens. And there's been several other moments, the TV shows, the movies that have been coming out. And little did we know this last 30 days would be a big part of that moment. But we're going to continue to have these moments, and it's a real opportunity for us as members to let our light shine. And so I think it's cool, and I think you're right in the midst of it, especially with your speaking career and everything. I imagine it'll have an impact and open up even more opportunities for you.
I hope so. Yeah, and I appreciate the way you say that, because truthfully, watching people testifying that I've never seen post, really inspiring. It's what needs to happen. And as I was thinking about what are the ways that we can still give and share, and if, let's say, you still are quiet online, that's okay. There's no shame in it. The point is, can you still show up for your meetings? Are you still going to be there for people that need you? And we did a project last night because it was Wednesday night, and we had young men's, young women's combined. And we went into the building for the first time since all this craziness has happened in Michigan. And here we are in Utah, and we're looking around like, wow, we're in a building like the same type of place this happened. And we had a bunch of cardboard boxes that we were going to fill up for people in need with some food items. And our leaders said, hey guys, we're going to color and draw positive images on these boxes so they don't just look plain and cold when we hand them to people in need. And this is not something I knew I needed to do last night, but I did. I sat with a young woman and the bishop, and we sat and colored a cardboard box. And this is our way of potentially filling through purpose, through promise, to paint and to draw and to color a little bit of joy and light for somebody we don't know, to do something for ourselves and for them that is our best way to give back and to serve and to say, I am still here. I believe in Christ. I will serve even if I'm scared or persecuted. And we stand together, and we're all children of God. And that was a beautiful thing to be able to do with my sons last night and this group of young people, to say, this is important enough for us to draw on a box that, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, means almost nothing. And yet it's what you can do. Lift where you stand. It is the way you shine the light.
Right. So for you, An important part of that shining the light has been music and in serving. Have there been any other moments in your life that someone shined their light for you that had a big impact?
Oh, certainly. I've had so many people that have made a humongous difference in my career and my life and so forth. I would say in the last year, watching my children who are graduating from high school, it seems all at once, after they were babies, just what seemed like a little bit ago, now all of a sudden they're adults. I would say watching my children shine the light of Christ every day with their friends, the way that they have really gone about every single day. I didn't know if my son would go on a mission. I mean, we always talked about it, but it wasn't until he surrounded himself with a bunch of incredible kids and leaders who all decided they're all going to do whatever it takes to go on a mission. And to watch them all shine that light all through the school year. And now I don't know when the last time it was that I went to church in my ward 2 times in a row because we have been at so many farewells for the last 5 months. It's like the greatest blessing I maybe have ever witnessed. It's almost like this outpouring of the spirit of a Pentecostal type to say, here come all these youth. And we know that the missionary effort is greater than it's ever been. And it seems like the train is just going to keep going faster as more get on this train and say, I will be a missionary. I will stand for Christ. I will share. I will travel the world. I will walk into persecution and potentially danger in order to share the light in the dark. And to watch these kids do this has been, for me, one of the most inspiring pieces of my life. And I've had to fully repent for not maybe being as faithful as I could have been in terms of reading my scriptures as consistently or as in depth, or just being as consistent as I should be in certain things like going to the temple as much. It was amazing to watch my kids say, Dad, let's go hit every temple we can before Redford leaves on his mission. And then we're going temple to temple. We would hit 3 to 5 per day as we ran through Utah and up into different states. And I thought, this is incredible. These are my children dragging dad to the temple, a guy who loves the temple. My kids are shining the light at a radiance I never expected, and I can't tell you how wonderful it is to watch.
That's really cool that you're able to witness your kids be able to shine that light and be an example. And they've watched your lead. And it seems like you guys have done a good job teaching along with the rest of the community and in helping. Throughout this whole process, what has it been like to try to balance your faith with your business and also your family?
Well, as I travel, it's been its own kind of challenge, right? So I have to, of course, balance making sure that I'm leaving on good terms and coming back in good terms, right? And
Right.
I'm constantly doing all I can to be a good dad and a good husband. And I think that it's become such a part of our life that it's not so tricky as it might seem. I'm not gone that much compared to maybe what it appears, but I used to average 200 dates a year on the road. And when the kids came around, we had to kind of change that up a little bit. So I've lessened it more and more every single year in order to be home as much as I can for some not only quality time, but quantity time. And I think that those are hand in hand in their own right. And so some of the ways that I think that works is just to make sure that I am fully present with the people that matter the most. Fully present means to put my phone down as much as possible. And although I do my business on my phone, it's also something that is a necessary evil, if you will, because you
Right.
can get sucked into those apps or playing games or looking at social media or the news or even just texting other folks and friends. And so, in terms of being fully present, I would say that that's become the promise for me is to say, how can I be fully present with my children, my family, whenever I'm there? And remembering to make sure that when I get to the place that I'm traveling to, I don't linger longer in those spaces. I go straight to my room, essentially, turn all the lights on, A hotel room is truly Satan's lair, and you can get gobbled up in a lot of ways in there. And so, what I like to do is get there, open the windows, turn on all the lights, turn off the TV, open up my laptop, and turn on either a conference talk of some of our leaders or some music that calms my soul. And I actually change really quickly in order to go to the gym and or go for a walk. And I think that just connecting to nature, physically moving my body, those types of things that are small promises, but they make all the difference in moving the dial and of my life, allow me to stay on the path and keep my covenants and promises that I've made. And so those are some of the patterns that I do. We always have a goodnight prayer from the road wherever I'm at, and it's a phone call and or FaceTime. That's a fun little tradition. And then of course, coming home, what I appreciate is my wife has set the tone for that to be a really nice experience. And I know that it may seem like not a big deal for the kids to run to the door to greet dad, especially when it's either a trip he's been on and they're used to that or just coming home from work for the day. But she established a long time ago that when I come through the door, they come running for me. And I'm so glad when daddy comes home is kind of the theme in that sense. It makes me as a man and a priesthood holder want to come home worthily and be a greater man as I travel home. And I'm so thankful for a wife that understands that. And it obviously is the favors returned. So when she comes home, we're actually just thrilled whenever she comes home, right? But when dad comes home, she's made it a special thing.
That's really cool. For those that are wondering how to better share their talents and multiply their talents in a variety of ways, what would your advice be to them?
I liken it to an artist with a hit song. And every artist has their song you go to the concert to hear. And if they don't play that song, it's a broken promise. And so the question for every listener and somebody watching this would be, what are your signature moves? What makes you stand out in a sit down world? What are you known for? What is it that you share the best and the brightest? If you're not quite sure, that's okay. A lot of people aren't quite sure. I mean, most of us might say, oh, I have so much to improve, and I could write down a whole list of things that I could be better at. But I like to say, why don't we lean into what we're already good at and let's emphasize that? So, in terms of maybe just sit down and write down what I call the ICM process. And I teach this to leaders as to how to help the people they lead understand better their own skills and gifts. I just say, why don't you write down and identify as many gifts as you have, whether it's that you're a good dad, you're a writer, maybe you're a podcaster, maybe you're a singer, or you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you're good at fixing things or baking things. Maybe you're a nurturer. Maybe you're a problem solver. Maybe you're a gamer. Maybe you're really good at social media. I mean, look at all the gifts you could identify. They're very simple, and yet the accumulation of all of those become who you identify yourself to be. Now, with the ICM process, identify as I, C stands for clarify, and M for magnify. So you've identified your gifts. Now, clarify it with others. Sit down for a family night. Ask mom or dad. Ask your husband or wife. Ask your family, friends. Ask somebody you work with. Hey, what are some of my gifts? What do you see in me that I'm good at? I just need 2 or 3 words. And if I wrote down on my list that I think I'm a funny guy, now somebody might clarify for me that they might say, I think you're hilarious. And I go, I'm hilarious? And they go, well, yeah, I identified I'm funny, but you clarified for me I'm hilarious. I like that word a little better. And usually somebody will see something in us that we don't see in ourselves. They'll clarify what we've yet to identify, so then we can magnify that every single day. So if you sit down and you write down what you identify are your gifts and then clarify it with somebody you trust, and just have them send you the words that really work for you, that can become your new signature moves that you can share. And I mean, I remember when I was on my mission, I remember thinking, I'm not that smart. I really am not. And yet I really wanted to be more of a scholar in the gospel. And I remember when one elder in my district, he was so smart. And I did a little district training, and he looked at me and he said, "You're a scriptorian." And I was like, "I am?" And he goes, "Yeah, you know the scriptures really well." I did not know the scriptures as well as I wanted to, but in his opinion, I was a scriptorian. And so that became a word in my mind that I was like, I am a scriptorian. And as simple as him saying that allowed me to then magnify that in my life as something I could focus on. So for anybody watching, identify your talents, clarify them with others, and magnify them. That is how you discover your signature moves, your greatest hits. Those are your superpowers. And I truly believe when we share those things, we're keeping the promise.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights and your stories. For those who want to follow you and to learn more about your story, where should they go?
Well, I'm available on my website, jasonhewlett.com, and that's the main place where you can find everything that's linked to me. I also am on LinkedIn, which is a great place to be, and I am very active there. So I'd say LinkedIn is the best place, and my website, jasonhewlett.com. And I'm also the president of a great health company, Cardio Miracle, and it's a company my dad founded. So cardiomiracle.com as well. That's a natural health supplement that we help people with their cardiovascular issues. So these are some fun things that I get to do. I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that God has blessed me with to shine the light of Christ in the lives of others.
Thank you for listening to Successful Saints and spending this time with us today. Jason's story reminds us that when we put our covenants and callings first, God can turn our quirks, our sacrifices, and even our setbacks into something far greater than the plan we had in mind. If this episode encouraged you, share it with someone who needs that reminder, and subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation on faith, leadership, and building the kingdom.